Welcome back. Today, I'll show you how to go from log footage like this to a finished image with film-like colors and tones like this directly inside Final Cut Pro, I guess 11 now, with the Dehancer Pro plugin. Let's go. Before we get started, I just want to address one small thing. I live in quite a noisy environment. There is the AC that I cannot turn off. There is the noisy neighbors. There is the road just there. There are some cats going around. So if you hear some noise in the background, I can't control it, and I apologize for that. This video is not sponsored by Dehancer. They did not pay me to make this video. They did, however, send me the plugin to try and give feedback, whether it was in Resolve or Final Cut Pro 10, but all the thoughts in these videos are my own, and Dehancer won't see the video before it's released. This video is part 1 out of 3 of a guide on how to use Dehancer Pro with Final Cut Pro. And I already made a review and a tutorial for Dehancer in Resolve that you can see somewhere around there, but it was more advanced and it uses features specific to Resolve like nodes and color management. So this video is more of a starting guide for Dehancer in Final Cut Pro, and today we'll only look at how to install the plugin and then the first 5 basic settings to get from your log footage to film-like look. Dehancer Pro is a film emulation plugin for Final Cut Pro that lets you easily transform, color correct, and color grade, which are different things, your digital looking camera footage to a final image emulating cinema film stocks like Kodak Vision 3 and Fujifilm. It's perfect if you want film-like color without jumping into a complex color management workflow like you would find in Resolve, for example. Unlike DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro doesn't really have a built-in color management that you can easily customize, like DaVinci Wide Gamut, for example, with the nodes and all of that. And so while the Dehancer plugin itself offers the same features across platforms, Final Cut, Resolve, Premiere, you can go even further with your grade in Resolve because of all of the color features it offers. And you should now be able to see my screen. The first thing we'll do is download the Dehancer Pro plugin for Final Cut. So here I have the Dehancer website. I'm going to go to Product. And then here on the left, I want to go to Final Cut Pro plugins. Dehancer Pro, we're going to go to Download. And here we'll go to Download here. And I'll speed that up if it takes too much time. And the great thing about trying Dehancer Pro is that the trial versions includes all of the features of Dehancer Pro. The only difference is that there is a watermark when you're trying to view inside the viewer on Final Cut, or if you try to export the footage, then you also have a watermark. But other than that, it's the exact same software, which is great to make sure that it really fits your workflow. Okay, the download is now done, so we'll go to our download folder here, Dehancer Pro. And here you have 3 different files. You have the usage guide and the Final Pro setup guide. And I highly suggest that when you have time, you go through these 2 documents. There is a ton of information in there about the feature of the plugin, how to install it, and all of that. But just to speed up the process, I'll just quickly show you here. So we'll go to the Dehancer Pro, open it up, and then you just continue here. You can just leave the normal location. You can change it if you have a specific workflow. I just leave it as default. Here, you put your password in. Put your password in. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to type it down. And we'll just wait for the installation to complete. And it's now done. We can close this. You can keep it or move it to trash. I usually keep it. And now we'll launch Final Cut Pro. Now that we installed the plugin, we can go ahead and launch Final Cut Pro. You should be able to see my display here, and you can see I already have a timeline made up with some clip I shot in the south of France on the Canon, then I have some in the French Alps shot on an iPhone. So here we go on this clip, for example, and then here on the effect panels, you can see there is a new tab here called Film Emulations. And in there, you might not see all of those, but you'll see Dehancer Pro 7. So you can either drag it down or double click. And already you can see it did something to the images, right? If you do the before and after, it did something, not something right, but it's a beginning. So first thing, we'll just turn off this one. And like I said in the beginning, for this video, we're only going to take a look at the first 5 settings to go from log footage to Rec 709, because there are so many settings in Dehancer Pro and they're all great, but trying to understand them all together, well, it can be quite overwhelming. So for today, we'll just go on the simple basic thing. And as you can see here, I removed the Dehancer Pro. I'm going to hide it here, and then I'm going to go to color and I'm going to drag it, the color adjustment thing here. I'm going to place it above. Why? Because Final Cut works a little bit like Photoshop in layers, and this color adjustment is going to have our basic color correcting. So most likely it's going to be the white balance. So I'm going to go ahead, and usually I call it basic. Perfect. And then if I go here, you can see that I have like different settings I can change, and the one I'm mostly interested about are the highlight warmth and tint, mid-tone warmth tints, and so on. Perfect. Now we're gonna go back, Dehancer Pro, and turn it on this time. Next, under Input, we'll set up Dehancer Pro so it works with your camera. And that's why I really enjoy Film Emulation plugin like Dehancer and even Film Convert, is because depending on which camera you are using, it adapts the tools to fit your camera's colors and tones. So this was shot on an R5C, so I'll go to Canon here, R5C, and then Silux 3 Cinema Gamut. Now, you should always shoot in log when possible because it has the flattest profile, perfect for post-productions, and excellent dynamic range. However, if your camera doesn't really shoot log, it's fine. You can still use Dehancer, but you won't be able to color grade to the same extent. And in output, you just have to pick the here, the Rec 709. And just like that, we transform the footage from log to Rec 709, and choosing the correct camera profile makes it already so much better. By the way, if you don't know what Rec 709 is, it's basically the standard color space used for HD video. So you have to think of it like as a set of rules that define how the colors and the brightness of your images should look like on a TV or the monitor, and it helps ensure that all the color you see in your project will look consistent across a device like your iPad, your iPhone, or even YouTube. And so when you're grading footage, converting your log or flat footage to Rec 709 is like telling the editing software, okay, now I need to make this footage look like a real finished video. And this is why many workflows like Dehancer end up with a Rec 709 output, which is for standard video, which is different from HLG like HDR. Now that we have Dehancer set up to recognize our camera, we can go inside our first settings, which is the film. Under the film profile here, you can see it says Kodak Vision 3250D, and that corresponds to, on older camera, what type of film you put into your motion picture camera, the negative film. And you can see on clicking on it, you have access to tons of different film stock. Now, most of those are photo film stock. And so for this video, and generally what you want to use are the motion picture film stock, which are these Kodak Vision 3 line here. You have 4 of them. And you also have the Fujifilm, what is it again? Yeah, the Eterna Vivid and the 50D. Those unfortunately are expired, and I believe now only Kodak has the possibility to make real motion picture film. You also have some black and white one, like the very legendary Eastman XX, which you may know from the Oppenheimer thing. And then you also have the Ektachrome. I think this one is based on the photo emulsion, but it also have a motion picture brother. And so for this one here, we're probably going to go with the Vision 3 lines. Now you can see there are different versions and they have different name here. So basically the T is for tungsten if you were to use indoor under tungsten, and the number corresponds to the ISO. And so for daylight here, and this was shot in daylight, you have 250D and 50D. Most of the time you want to go with the 50D because it was well lit. So we're gonna go to 50D. Boom, and just like that, we have our first setting. Next, we'll go to the print tab. So I'm going to slide down a little here, and you can see I have a print with a profile, linear, and a couple of the settings. Now, what is print? Well, think of film as a two-step process, right? First, we have our film negative that we put inside the camera, and then you would have to develop it. You would have to send it to your editor and then just edit the movie, make the sound and all of that. And at the end, your movie is done, it's completed. So now you need to share it and send it to different movie theaters. So they used to print it, and they still do if they shoot film, on another piece of film, this time positive, they can copy and then they put it inside a projector at the movie theater. And that's basically what you see at the movie theater, right, on the big screen. And you can also replicate that look with Dehancer. So under Profile, I'm going to click and I'm going to choose Kodak 2383, print film, because it matched the Kodak color negative film, which shows if you used a Fujifilm stock, you can go with the Fujifilm. You can also, of course, mix and match, but to stick close as the real thing, we're going to choose the Kodak. And watch what it does. Okay, already it is much more contrast. The image is blurred, there is a slight color shift, but that's the look of having the negative transformed and printed onto another piece of film. If this look is already too strong for you, then no worries, simply go back to Profile here and choose Linear. And now Linear is basically a standard curve that interprets the film profile which shows here, which is Vision 3. So this is great if you just want to emulate the color negative film stock. I'll go back to the Kodak now because I like it. And then we can start playing with some of those settings. The first thing I'm going to do is turn on the analog range limiter. And this basically lifts a bit the shadows and compress the highlights. And it's very useful for cameras with limited dynamic range. My R5C, I believe, I have 13.5 stops of dynamic range. And I would say that anything below 13 stops, you can go on and turn this on. It's going to help to control how much the highlights are being clipped and how much the shadow is going to be burned. Then you have the exposure EV here, which is the one I use the most to control overall my exposure. In this case, I'm going to leave it as is. And maybe the only thing I'll do here is do the tonal contrast and add a bit more of contrast. And let's see. And don't worry, just go play, remove all the way to see what you can work with, right? So about here. And already I really like what I'm seeing. And just like that, we've completed setting number 2. The third setting is actually outside of Dehancer. Now you remember how we made a basic adjustment tool here? I'm going to click on it, and you also want to make sure from now on that you have your vectorscope and all of that turned on. So under workspace here, you can go to the color and effects and to see all of your tools here. And now we can just adjust our white balance. For this shot, I don't need to do much, but basically you always want to start with your shadows and don't hesitate to just go crazy on it to see what it does. And then the game here is to align the waveform here, and I like the RGB overlay as well to see what's going on. You can see that right now if I go crazy on my worms, you can see the crest of red, meaning it's missing some, and then I lifted them here and they don't exist, and here I burned them. So obviously you don't want that. And this can be very subtle, so I think I'll leave my shadows, maybe I'll warm them just a little, then the tint, and I also always pay attention to the vectorscope on the right here and the left. A bit of magenta, maybe one as well, and then I'll go to the highlights. Okay, maybe I want to warm them up, not so much actually, maybe I'll cool them down, and then my tint. Just slightly adjusting, maybe there's too much magenta inside my highlights, so I'm going to reduce them a little. Perfect, and then you have your mid-tone warms. Those usually I don't touch here at this stage. Might have to cool them down a little, but I don't think it's necessary. And then you always like turn it off and on to see what it's doing. So it's very subtle, but it's there, and you can see here I was able to make sure that it's a bit more aligned here. There's still a lot of blue, obviously, because the blue boat and the sky, but just like that, we've just made our third settings, which is setting up the correct white balance. We are now in our fourth settings, and we're going to go back inside Dehancer. Below film compression, we're going to take a look at the expand tab. Now, it has your black point and your white point. The black point is right now is set to 0, and this means that you have your pure black, and you can see it's touching here. It's actually, I'm losing a bit of information in my black, which is fine. And so at 0, if I go negative, I'm going to lift my shadows. So I can lift them and you can see what's happening. And so just like that, you can kind of make that kind of like faded, expired film look, which I don't really like, but if it's your taste, go for it. So I'm going to go back to maybe -1. When it comes to the white point, you can see it's set to 0, but I still have a lot of room. And you can see I'm right above, like, I'm at what here, 99. This means I still have room in my highlights to make them brighter. So my white point, I'm going to decrease it, and you can see what it does. And now I'm overexposed, and here I'm just have no highlights whatsoever. So maybe I'll go around 90, okay? And this expand tool here is not something that you're going to set once and forget it. It's probably the tool you're going to use the most and come back the most to while playing with the other settings. And so this is the look right now, but maybe it's too contrasty. So you could then change the tonal contrast, reduce it here, which can allow me to go back to a black point of 0, and then I can maybe expand my white points, right? Or I can leave that to 95, and I can go just change my exposure under the print thing. And so all of those tools do similar things, but they all work hand in hand to really dial in that look. So I'm going to maybe, I can augment it like this, or go back here, and I can look at my thing. I'm still burning some shadows here, so maybe I'll go back to -1, and then I might want to still add some contrast back, right? Because film is very contrasty. And just like that here, we have our fourth setting. And just like that, we're on to our final setting. So we're now done with the colors and the tone. We're just gonna leave those as they are. We're going to go down here to our grain. Those are our final settings for today's video. And so the film grain here, you can see it's set to 35mm, ISO 250. Now, I forgot to mention in the beginning of the video, but because the grain is very intricate, the way it's doing it in Dehancer Pro, it can sometimes make your computer a bit sluggish. So generally what I would like to do is, as soon as I put the Dehancer Pro, I turn off the grain so I can further adjust and scrub. If you try to scrub with the grain, you might find it a bit slow, again, depending on your computer. But we're going to enable it again here, and you can see it has a lot of grain, a lot of texture, beautiful texture from film, but 250 is the ISO. Now remember, if we go to our film profile, this was 50D, meaning this is daylight at 50 ISO, so we want to change that. And so we're going to go back to 35, and you can see there are presets made for 18mm, 16, 35, and 65. Now, to make the most detailed grain and not to make it too prominent on these images, most of the settings you should use are the 65mm. So I'm going to select 65 ISO 50. You can see the grain is still there. If I zoom to 100, you can still see some grain if I turn it off and on, but it's much more subtle, and it's something that might be less prominent than, let's say, going to 35 50D. But you're more than welcome to choose the one you like the most. I'm going to go back to 65mm, ISO 50, and go to Fit. And there you have it. With these 5 settings, we were able to go from a log flat image to a film look in Rec. 709. So continue to try those settings only, get used to them, try different film stocks and different print formats. Then, in the next video, we'll dive into the developer compression, bloom, halation tools to refine your look even further. If this helped, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can do more of those videos in the future. I also have a discount code, RobinFernStudio, if you want to get 10% off your purchase of Dehancer, and I'll get a small commission that really helps the channel, so thank you in advance. However, and this is probably not in my advantage to say, but whatever, maybe you wait for the upcoming videos to see if Dehancer is really a tool that works for you. And in the meantime, you can just continue to use the trial because it has no duration in time. So I'll see you next time, and bye for now.